I can confidently say from experience that you never wake up thinking, maybe today's the day that Troy Aikman will call me a jackass. But some days you wake up and the rest of your 24 hours just get a little bit weird.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello, welcome in to Troy Aikman's Three Favorite Writers talking about Troy Aikman. I'm Joshua Brisco with Seth Keysor and Nate Taylor. We have Seth back after not having him on Tuesday. We have a whole lot of things going on around the Kansas City Chiefs that bear discussion, but I don't think we can begin there, fellas. I'll get the clip rolling in a little bit, but before we fully hand this show over to a three-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, the only stat that matters,
Yes.
How are you doing on this fine Thursday? Seth, you in a good headspace? Didn't have you Tuesday. Missed you. Show was good. We missed you, though.
I missed being here. The show was excellent, as per the expectations.
What was your favorite part?
You know, my favorite part was really, and it's hard to pick.
Yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
think, Nate's closing, as ever, was. I mean, I laughed, I cried. But so people know, my son Lucas, my youngest son, who's 8, is now officially a white belt in Taekwondo and earned his uniform by doing his 4-step thing. What
You are not a white belt.
I am not. And he did a terrific job, and I'm super proud of him. And I got to watch it all happen, thanks to you guys carrying on somehow, some way in my absence, which is great because I'm on vacation next week. But I'll probably bring a mic with me anyway. So.
Hell of a time to find that out. Nate, you're in all blue. Maybe, we were able to soldier on without Seth, with the Royals be able to soldier on tonight. How are we feeling right now?
I feel optimistic, Hey, what's the signal? What's the signal to swing away? He's got our best hitter. Evelyn!
Nate's currently signaling for those of you in an audio medium checking your podcast app of choice. Nate's delivering the swing away signal.
Fellas, just swing away today. Swing away. I know, Nate Dogg. I know. Nate Dogg says, what's the steal sign? I very much want to talk about this for 30 seconds.
Okay.
The reason Dave Roberts is in forever lore in baseball history with the 2004 Boston Red Sox is, ladies and gentlemen, there was no tomorrow. He had to steal against Mariano Rivera. The Royals were not in the same situation last night. It was game 3. They were not down 3-0. We did not need a pinch runner. I know Bobby Witt is the fastest man in baseball, but Salvador Perez is at the plate, and if you let him swing, he could potentially give you a 2-run home run. So I understand why Matt Contreras didn't have the steal sign on. Now, obviously, everybody knows the steal sign is the ears. It's somewhere in the ears, earring. Looking for a piercing. Pierce that infield. But tonight, if given a similar situation, our backs are against the wall. We are on the brink of elimination. There is no tomorrow. So yeah, go steal that base. I want everybody to swing away. I want everybody to go steal. Hell, get some bunts down, fellas.
We're in bunt territory already? Is that swing away?
Hey, if somebody gets on base in the first inning, put the bunt down.
All I'm going to ask for, not to get too greedy, all I'm going to ask for is a respectable number of base hits, maybe 3 runs, and just throw a few strikes. Maybe just don't put Yankees on base for free. That would be my suggestion.
Yes.
But I'm not a baseball guy.
Also, I think they're going to need more than 3 runs.
I wanted to be
It'd be nice.
realistic, but yeah, I mean, I think just throw strikes and get on base. That's the signal that I'm trying to give today. Throw strikes, get on. That's where I'm at.
Hey, who's the manager here? I am. Okay. If people understand that reference. Swing
Now,
away.
One issue, Nate, is that, hits are just stats. Walks are just stats, and steals are just stats, and they're not wins. And one thing, historically speaking, no baseball game ever has been a Super Bowl win. And I think that's important as we have this discussion here. No plate of food has ever been a Super Bowl win. No hug from a child has ever been a Super Bowl win. No dog frolicking through a yard. That's never been a Super Bowl win. And you can get rings in your life in other ways, but those rings don't really matter. The only type of ring that matters, of course, is a Super Bowl ring. Now, Patrick Mahomes has 3 of those.
It's not this ring? I thought it was this ring. Seth,
unfortunately not. No,
all right, there's two. Put it up, Josh.
We have 3 total. I'm just saying that the, sacred covenant of marriage, spit on that if you have a chance to get yourself a Super Bowl ring. Patrick Mahomes does have 3 of those. A fact that Troy Aikman in a recent appearance did not seem to directly address. But our dear friend, football player, broadcasting legend, one of the members of those 90s Cowboys, Troy Aikman. We've had our history with him, but I figured that was largely in the rear view. But he was on Pardon My Take, and yesterday morning, show goes out, social videos go out, and we're going to go ahead and play a clip here of Troy Aikman being asked a question about an old tweet of his, referring to one particular jackass who didn't think that was going to be how his Wednesday went.
Has Patrick Mahomes brought up the famous tweet? Because that was bad, Troy.
But so here's what happened. I don't even hardly get on Twitter. But in 2019, I just happened to get on it. And I was looking at my replies, and this one comes up. Whoever this writer was, like, why would he compare Patrick Mahomes, his stats, to me? Like, I was never known as a stats guy.
True.
Why wouldn't he compare Mahomes' stats to Dan Marino or Joe Montana or somebody like that? So when I read it, I felt like the writer was taking a shot at me. I thought, I said, like, this jackass. I mean, like, what, and does yards or any of that even matter? Do touchdowns even matter? At the end of the day, for a quarterback, the only thing that matters is winning championships. I mean, that's all that we're ultimately judged on. So at the end of the day, the championships, in my opinion, and I know that sounds self-serving because I was able to win 3, but that's what matters. So I thought this writer was, I just thought, what do numbers mean? It's irrelevant. So my reply was really a shot back at the writer to say, hey, this is what matters.
Right.
Hey, it was never a shot at Patrick Mahomes.
Interesting.
Hang on, I'm Googling, what do numbers mean? Interesting.
Can one of you find out if touchdowns are an important part of winning football games? I'm just curious. But that's not even the thing that struck me the most direct hit through the chest. Nate has fully left the screen, and frankly, I respect it. Seth, if I say anything that needs you to phase one way or the other, you can keep that move in your pocket. You're welcome to stay. But if you need to leave, I understand.
Right here with you, buddy. You and me.
Seth, I don't get on Twitter very often. But when I do, I get in there and I make it about me. I just happened to be on Twitter in 2019. And I saw the only time it happened. I just checked my mentions, since we tagged Troy Aikman. We didn't. Shout out to Danielle, who was a legacy here, will never be lost, as she put out the clip, then put out the tweet that turned into this. For new listeners, I am the jackass.
Hey, man, hey, Troy, that's cap. I both tip my cap to you, and also, hey, bro, that's cap. You know that's cap.
He just happened to be on Twitter and see this. A totally unavoidable part of his life is he just managed to be on Twitter. It happens to the best of us. Why would he compare Mahomes to me? I'm not a stats guy. I'm a rings guy. Why wouldn't he compare him to a better quarterback like Dan Marino or Joe Montana, or just a more statistically successful one? Does Aikman want to compare himself to Joe Montana? I don't. That seems bad to me if I was in Troy's shoes. We can have a lot of fun about if touchdowns matter or what numbers are, or if Troy Aikman has ever been on Twitter, or if he only logs in to find something to make it about himself. The one part of this, though, that does seriously bother me just a smidge. Bothers the appropriately sized word. I'm not going to lose sleep over this. But the part that does just irk me just a smidge is the fact that Troy Aikman, by pure happenstance, was on twitter.com, saw this tweet, and his thought, seeing this tweet from, at the time, the Athletic Kansas City Twitter account, his thought was, why are they taking a shot at me? They're talking about two quarterbacks here. The options are either A, Patrick Mahomes is being compared to a Hall of Fame quarterback, and a statistic that absolutely makes Mahomes' start mind-bogglingly insane, or this little podcast in Kansas City is just out here to create beef with Troy Aikman. I will admit that this show has accepted the beef with Troy Aikman. Always. Frankly, I would accept a conversation with Troy Aikman. I tried to call him after 33%, did not return my calls. I would welcome that conversation because, frankly, I think I could clear the air by just saying, excuse me, Troy, I just want you to know, this is honest to goodness, this is the truth. I want you to know that was going to be a Joe Namath stat, because as I was trying to figure out who I could compare this start from Patrick Mahomes for, that, well, Joe Namath, like, sort of famously probably has the least impressive resume of a Hall of Fame quarterback, but in the era that he played in, his part in that era of the NFL, he gets in because he's Joe bleeping Namath. I've never had any problem with Joe Namath nor Troy Aikman being in the Hall of Fame, but I think we should be legally allowed to read their stats. But I went to Namath first. But Namath had a better games to touchdowns ratio. He just does. That is a silly stat. But as Patrick Mahomes began his career the way that he did, the most outrageous part of Mahomes' stat line was how productive he was throwing touchdowns at the very beginning of his career. So that stat existed solely to highlight, underline, italicize how hot out the gate Patrick Mahomes had been. He went on, of course, to win 33% of Aikman's Super Bowls a few months later, and then 100% of his Super Bowls several years later. The reason that Troy Aikman got that, quote, shot at me, that this jackass, in Aikman's opinion, took a shot at him, was because he was the quarterback with the least impressive stats who's in the Hall of Fame. That's why I didn't use Dan Marino, because it wasn't about Dan Marino. That's why I didn't use Troy Aikman, because it wasn't about Troy Aikman. It just so happened that as the research was being done, those stats stood out as a real outlier among more productive quarterbacks who are in the Hall of Fame. Also, it's been 5 damn years. We are at 100% of the Super Bowls. And I had to explain my Aikman history to someone on Monday. On Monday, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, it goes back. It's this whole dumb thing, but it was 5 years ago, so we probably have it in the rear view. I would love to have a chat with Mr. Aikman about how we arrived here. I won't tweet him about it, though, because he won't see it, because he's never on Twitter, except for that one time. Seth, what are numbers? Do touchdowns matter? You guys can talk about it now.
I took the opportunity to do a little bit of research because I think the analysis is important here. And it turns out that touchdowns are actually, and I don't want to get too technical here, touchdowns are actually the way you score the most points in football.
What?
And it turns out that
Huh?
the
Hold on,
more
hold on, hold on,
points-
hold on. What's that?
Yeah.
What's no?
Yeah,
no,
if you
no.
score a touchdown, you get 6 points. And hold on. Before you freak out about that, you actually get 6 points and the opportunity to kick an extra point, 7 total. Which you know the other ways of scoring points. One's called a field goal. That's only 3, less than half.
I thought that's why those uprights were at the end of the field, because like soccer, you want to get the ball through the uprights, right? That's the objective of the game.
Look, I was trying to explain to my daughter once why running the ball in from 1 yard out is worth more than twice as much as kicking a field goal from like 60 yards away. And I was actually like, I actually don't really have a good answer for that because that is more impressive. She's like, but that seems harder. I'm like, you're not wrong, but we can't do that. So that's actually the way to score the most points is touchdowns. Look, I think it's a good example. You should always just be willing to ask yourself, why should I care? And Troy, who obviously has never heard of me, never will, he should just understand there's literally no reason to care what I say, what Josh says, what Nate says. You're in the Hall of Fame, man. You're
It just wasn't about him.
You won. It was you. You just happened to be.
Seth.
And
Seth,
it's not Josh's fault that you happen to have the least impressive statistical resume. That's why. Why did he pick you? Because you were at the bottom of the ladder, dude. And that doesn't mean that your career is at the bottom of the ladder. You had an exceptional career.
I'm not a
tragically
stats guy.
cut shorter than we wish it could have been because of injuries. But you had an incredible career. Most football players would give anything to have your career. That's the reason. So, like, don't ask questions. This is a good lesson here. Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. Why did he choose you? Because you were at the bottom of the ladder, statistically. So it was utilized to demonstrate a Hall of Fame quarterback's resume against Patrick Mahomes's. That was the entire point. And it's not his fault that you were at the bottom of the ladder, statistically. That's not anyone's fault. Well, I mean, there's one person whose fault it might be, but
I have 2 questions, fellas.
Hit me.
Does Troy Aikman's on-air broadcaster partner, play-by-play man, does he know us? Does he know us by name?
he might.
He certainly had a conversation with one member of this show before a Monday Night Game a couple years back, I believe. Mr.
Broadcasting
Taylor,
legend Joe Buck.
who I
Joe Buck.
genuinely enjoy.
Joe Buck knows my name. He knows your name and he knows your name. Joe Buck thought it was hilarious at the time, and I would say he knows he still probably feels that way to this day. Now the second question is, this is gonna be tough. This is gonna be tough because, ladies and gentlemen, I need your help.
Please don't tweet Troy Aikman. He won't see it.
When did Troy record this podcast? When did these quotes? When were
Great
these quotes
question.
uttered? Because I'll tell you what, fellas. After Monday's game, a couple people come down the escalator. I'm already on the ground level. A couple people step out. Oh, that lady looks like a makeup artist. Yep. That guy looks like security. That guy looks like perhaps a production assistant. Is that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman? You're damn right it is. Now, I'm going to say something that is 100% fact. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't fool you. I wouldn't. I have no need to go cap. Even though I got a cap on. Okay? It's understandable. This is what happened. I'm sorry, Troy. You looked washed and tired after that game.
Good Lord.
He didn't want to. He said on air he didn't want to be there any longer.
I would just note, you know who didn't sound wash during the broadcast? Joe Buck. Because once it was 3rd in Overland Park, and once it was 3rd down and 7 index cards. And both of those were just, I mean, 10 out of 10. No notes. 3rd and 7
It's great to
index
have
cards.
a Hall of Fame talent in the booth like that, along with Troy Aikman.
There's such a thing as called punching up. And anytime someone is 1,000 times more successful than I'll ever be, a little light teasing, it's going to be okay, man. You had a great career. It's okay. But you really shouldn't have asked why you were the one used, because it was about Mahomes and you were at the bottom of the ladder. That really is it. Statistically speaking, career-wise, you're not at the bottom of the ladder.
No, I didn't. I didn't tweet that he has 0% of his rings.
And that's just a fact. That's just, I mean, you can look it up. And it could have been John Elway. He just had better stats than you. Could have been Joe Montana or Dan Marino. They had better stats than you. So to really emphasize the point, your name got used because you're a Hall of Fame quarterback that after, a season and a half, Mahomes was walking down your stats. That's it. That's all I had to do. It was about Mahomes, not you. And so again, dear voyeurs and listeners, don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. Like, there are certain moments where I will occasionally ask my wife a variety of questions I don't actually want to know the answer to. Like, how do you think Hugh Jackman looked in that scene? I don't want to know the answer to that.
You sure do talk about it. Similarly to Troy Aikman, Seth, you sure do protest that pretty frequently.
Look, I've just seen Hugh Jackman shirtless. I don't want to know what Jazz thinks of that.
Hey, I've gotten to the point where I don't tell Holly when John Legend comes out with a new song because I don't want to hear that. Okay, I don't want to hear it.
Now imagine if 2 times a year on Monday night you had to go commentate a John Legend concert.
Oh,
you had to go commentate Hugh Jackman doing his thing on stage.
Beautiful.
That is the Aikman problem.
That's the Aikman problem.
Josh, as he sees another ballot, I just wonder where are the lyrics coming from. This doesn't match his life and his existence, and I don't know why so many people are just up in arms about his hit song after hit song after hit song. I don't know what's
the big deal
for.
Yeah. No, I get it. I hear you.
Yeah.
Sure, buddy.
Hey guys, did you know that Patrick Mahomes has thrown 141% of Troy Aikman's career passing touchdowns in 65% of the games?
Oh no.
Let's take a break.
Wow.
I think Troy could use one.
Tucker.
No.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. And turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Will Troy Aikman ever see or hear this episode of Only Weird Games? That's a coin toss. And speaking of coin tosses, Chiefs fans, We told you this on Tuesday. We're telling you again today because this is serious and this is a wild opportunity. You could be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Here's what you do. If you didn't hear us say it last episode, hear me now and go ahead and pop this URL in to your browser, put it in your phone, have this URL so you do not forget in 5 minutes. You go to chiefs.com/GEHA and you do that right now. You can enter to win a chance to be on the field for the March to the three-peat. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Just enter for a chance to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is a proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's an incredible deal, an incredible opportunity. Chiefs.com/GEHA. Be out there for the coin toss, man. That's unbelievable. Let's talk about the football team that plays in Kansas City and not a quarterback who once played in Dallas. Although I appreciate you guys giving us the time to really, really enjoy the fact that Troy Aikman had talked about us more recently than we had talked about him, which was an odd thing to reconcile with. But let's talk about, Seth, what you weren't able to tell us on Tuesday. You've already written about this in the Chief of the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. The Chiefs did not play their most high-octane game against New Orleans. We didn't expect them to. They are not simply free-flowing, high-flying Tyreek Hill versions of yore. But this Chiefs team, Seth, by your estimation here from what I'm reading in the Chief of the North newsletter, seems like the Chiefs may still be just a little scary, just a little frisky here, the only undefeated team in the AFC.
The only undefeated team in the AFC in sole possession of the 1 seed in the AFC. It's awfully early to talk about that stuff, but it's still interesting. And they will remain in sole possession of the 1 seed in the AFC this upcoming week as the rest of the AFC. There's only one team in the AFC with 1 loss as of right now.
Correct.
So there's a world where the Chiefs could come out of the bye week and lose and still be in sole possession of first place in the AFC. It's hilarious. Everyone looks vulnerable. Everyone's dropped games. The Ravens got beat by the Chiefs in a game that really wasn't as close as it should have. It wasn't as close as it looked in the final score. The Chiefs kind of let them crawl back in. Then the Raiders beat them. Now they're the new unstoppable thing. The Bills were unstoppable for 3 weeks, and then suddenly they dropped 2 in a row, and everyone's like, oh no. And, the Texans look good. I do need to see Stroud versus a really good defensive coordinator on 3rd down. Not because I don't think he's a great quarterback. Stroud's amazing. Every time I watch him, I'm like, holy crap, that guy's good. But his offense gets him in trouble on 1st and 2nd down, and then he's got to bail him out by being awesome on 3rd down. The problem is, if you remember what McDonald did to him in the playoffs with sim pressures and zone blitzes, it was not pretty at all. And I think that could probably happen again. Anyway, long road to a short thought. The Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I don't know if it's particularly close. They have yet to play even really an A- game. The Saints game is the closest one, right? That's close to an A- game because they moved the ball really well. The defense played really well, but they did give up a couple of big plays, which is not like them on defense. And they couldn't close in the red zone. That the drop, Juju Smith-Schuster's drop, as much joy as it brought everyone watching Colin Saunders. Because I was watching him, I was like, I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are going to win this game, so I'm kind of happy for him, but dang it, man. Like, Mahomes.
I didn't even get a single, I'm sorry to cut you off mid-analysis. I did not have a momentary knee-jerk reaction of sadness once I saw the size of the man who had grabbed the football. You can tell it means the game was not that stressful because immediately I was straight to cackling.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, that was sick. That was awesome. One-handed it. The corner tried. The corner's like, give me the ball. Get out of my way. Ah! And then Worthy was almost a hero. He tried to jab that ball out, and against 99% of defensive linemen, he would have jammed that ball right out. Really heads-up play by the Rook. But Colin
Not
Saunders
against defensive lineman / running back Colin Saunders.
Carrying that thing high and tight.
Hey.
And so that was great. Clearly his old teammates, it was so fun watching after the game. He was surrounded by like 4 or 5 of his old teammates. And I mean, you could tell he was having fun with it. Here's the long and short of it. Chiefs struggled in the red zone, some of it execution stuff. I mean, it just is what it is. You got to catch that if you're Juju. But he did go for like $130. So, I mean, what are we going to do? They are the thing I wrote on the Chief North newsletter is that something that's commonly said about football, as well as actual fights, is that styles make fights. And it's very, 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 very true in the NFL, is that styles make fights. And that's why, Team A beat Team B and Team B beat Team C. Therefore, Team A can beat Team C is way less true in the NFL than almost anywhere else. Did you follow that?
It's a lot of math.
That's a lot of math. Yeah, algebra's evil. We acknowledge it, but I apologize for that. The thing about the Chiefs right now,
all numbers are evil, as we previously established.
Indeed. The thing about the Chiefs is they have played, by DVOA, the toughest schedule in the league. Now, the Saints' DVOA numbers really bumped up because of the way they incinerated their first two opponents. So I don't know how much I buy into that, but the reality is they've played good teams. The Bengals have one of the best offenses in the league. Sure didn't look like that against Spags and company, did it? The Ravens looked terrific on offense and maybe not quite as good on defense. Didn't look as terrific against Spags and company, and Mahomes and Chiefs were able to move the ball. The Falcons look like a decent team. The Saints look like a decent team. The Chargers, who the bleep knows what they're doing, so I don't know. But Herbert's a freak. Of course, it was like half their team, so whatever.
Yeah, they had no linemen and one leg for Herbert.
I was just like,
correct.
But they've largely played, 4 out of the 5 teams they played are decent or better. They're undefeated. The thing that I like about the Chiefs right now, and they've got questions to answer at wide receiver, and Mahomes needs to play better. I haven't charted his snaps against the Saints. I think I'm going to find that he played real well against the Saints, but he was still dropping his eyes too fast. The man does not trust his protection right now. And he's not just dropping, he's not just like sliding up in the pocket or doing things like that. He is dropping his eyes and starting to run early. Like he tried to do a no-scope 360 when he could have just like held still. And that's not, he needs to get that under control. He always has, he always will. That's just how it works. So he will. So with Mahomes playing for him at like a C+ level at best, they're undefeated. With Rice going down, they're undefeated.
Yes.
What I love about them, they can play any style of football right now. Xavier Worthy gives them just enough for a big play or two a game. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing. Like statistically, it doesn't show up, but like a 45, 50-yard pass interference call, that's one reason you want deep threats on your team, because those are game-changing plays too. And although the funny thing is, the non-called was worse than the called one.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought it and I didn't feel like tweeting it.
It is, when you watch on all 22, like when they called it on the broadcast, I was like, there's no way he was catching up to that. When I watched it on all 22, it looks way more like Worthy would have, because he was starting to go and the defender knew it. It's like, oh no, I tripped, and like starts to fall on him. But the one in the end zone was way more egregious.
Right. If you watch Mahomes, the way he revs up that pass too, the one that actually gets the call, I was like, who on earth is catching that?
Like, who's doing that too? You see that cameraman in the back pylon? I'm throwing it into the third row behind him.
Yes.
So they can do just enough a couple times a game, and they're starting to do it from under center with a little bit of play action, taking some shots. They can stretch defenses a little bit because you have to pay attention to Worthy, because otherwise he'll be man coverage and he'll run by someone and get a touchdown or get a deep play. So they can do that a little bit. They need more of it. They need more. They have questions in the receiver room. But they can line up 5 wide. A couple of those wide are going to be tight ends.
They can only line up 5 wide because there's not a 6th right now.
Yeah, they can line up. They can line up they can line up in 14 personnel, and when they do, they can line up in spread from the shotgun, or they can line up all on the line of scrimmage. They can play.
Peyton Hendershot, can you come back and play halfback?
Yeah. Who's heard of 05 formation? They can do the bully ball thing. A really cool stat that I know our colleagues on Amateur Hour, the OGs, shout out to Ryan and Dirk as ever.
I love them. I'm lukewarm on stats, but I like those guys.
Sure. Dirk pointed out, and I thought this was just a great stat, that the Chiefs' longest run by a running back this year is 11 yards. They only have 3 runs of 10+ yards, but they're third in the NFL in success rate because they have 11 9-yard runs, 10 8-yard runs, and 21 5-yard runs. Like, and Pacheco was doing the same thing. He's not necessarily an explosive runs guy either. Maybe a little more than Kareem at this point, but it's hard to say. Both of them are like, now we'll get you 5.
Yep.
with good blocking. We'll get you 5. Now, they're not going to run away with it, but they'll get you 5, and they'll get you 5 where other guys maybe couldn't. They can, so you can ground and pound. You can throw the ball down the field. You can absolutely slice up zone coverage. I don't know what the Saints were thinking, by the way. I've gone back and looked. They were playing zone constantly. And I'm like, against Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster in the year of our Lord 2024, you're playing zone?
Hey, Coach. Yeah, just want to remind you some things. Yeah, I'm on the field right now. It's hard covering this man. I know he's 35, Coach, but
I'm tired. Yeah.
But also, I think Patrick is throwing the ball less than 10 yards to the perimeter because there's another McCole Hardman target. And also, Coach, I got to say, hey, dog, can we cover the middle of the field? Can we just try it? Can we just try it, Coach?
Leave Juju Smith-Schuster wide freaking
Can we
open.
just cover
Although
the
that
middle
was
of the
man
field,
coverage.
Coach?
That was man coverage. We left you on Juju and man, and you fell down, which that was great. And also, though, gave an example of, because they were playing, I want to say single high there.
Yes.
With man across the board.
They're playing deep single high.
And that single high safety was like, oh, Xavier Worthy's running this way. I'm
gotta
going.
go.
That's why when Juju's guy fell down, that's the thing you don't hear about often enough with the dangers of man coverage. What if your guy just falls down? Now there's no one around him. I can't remember the last time I saw Patrick Mahomes throw to someone that wide open. Like when he caught it and it zoomed in, there was no one in the frame.
Everybody in the press box was like, hey, yo, what happened? Like, what was that?
He fell down. Great athletes. They're just like us. So they can dice up zone coverage. That's one thing. Juju Smith-Schuster, honestly, at least for one game, looked a lot like how he looked in 2022. Like, we're not expecting 2019 or 2018 Juju Smith-Schuster. But the man's 27. He's not 35. Injuries have sapped some of the explosiveness, but that was true in 2022. What?
Have you seen his knees?
I actually haven't. I keep asking. They won't let me.
Yeah. No, yeah. They said that's creepy. So he's not terribly explosive, but he knows where to go against zone coverage. Mahomes clearly trusts him. So they can win against zone. And Andy Reid has been calling all sorts of pick plays and mesh concepts and stuff to penalize teams for playing man, and a few shot plays down the field to Xavier Worthy and Mahomes scrambling. Those are their weapons against man coverage. They need another receiver who can win against that. They just do. But so the overall point there is on offense, they haven't been great, but they've been relatively efficient when, like, Mahomes isn't throwing an inexplicable pick or whatever. They've been relatively efficient, relatively consistent, moving the ball better than they were last year, and they can play kind of any kind of game. The defense, same thing. They can play any kind of game. They don't really have, and what I wrote was they don't really have an identity, and normally that would be a bad thing. But they don't really have an identity because they can do it all. One thing their identity could be, they're very fundamentally sound overall. They tackle really well. They fly to the ball. You turn on other games on Sundays, and it's so much fun. We talked about this a few weeks ago, where it used to be I'd watch other teams' defense. I was like, man, why aren't the Chiefs flying to the ball like that? Now I watch other teams. I'm like, man, those guys do not get to the ball the way the Chiefs do. And it's fun to watch, but they really can. They can get after the quarterback by rushing 4 because Chris Jones is a metahuman. And that's even before Menahu's back. Now, that's not as consistent as it should be, but they figure it out. They make it work. They find those lineups. Chris Jones he's the straw that stirs the drink when they're rushing 4. They can blitz. They can run sim pressures. They have all kinds of crazy stuff on the back end. Oh, you know what? We need to just rush 4, and we need to trust our 2 top corners to lock down on the perimeter. They can do that because Jalen Watson is taking a step forward, and it's beautiful. They really can do anything against any type of team. Oh, you're a ground and pound team? Well, we're going to line up Leo Chanel on the as the Sam. He's going to be right on the line of scrimmage, and your tackle and tight ends can't move him. It's like having Reggie Ragland there, but one who's got sideline to sideline speed. Oh, you want to spread out and pass? So that means that you're spread out without a lot of protection there, and Chris Jones is going to end up one-on-one sooner or later and ruin that play. Oh, in the meantime, okay. Now you're going to bring it all together, but then try to pass out of that. We're going to blitz a slot corner. I hate to tell you. I mean, they really can do it all. And this year they've gotten way better against outside zone. It's been really cool to watch. They really can. This year in particular, it used to be, well, at least we can run the ball against them. And this year, no one's running the ball effectively against them. It's kind of fun to watch.
Seth, I want to run something by you that we mentioned briefly on Tuesday, so I know you've heard me say this already because, of course, you listened to Tuesday's show already. But just for anyone who might have missed it, certainly present company excluded,
Yes.
there's something interesting going on in the timeline of this, too, that I just want to get your thoughts on since, again, Nate and I mentioned it briefly. And we can go ahead, Tucker, so we're finally validating the title. I love Thou Shalt Not Run on the Chiefs defense. Nate can talk about it more because that's new in the Athletic. But this one little part of it all I think is fascinating. Throughout the Spags era, the defense in week 4 is significantly different, less diverse, and less good than the defense is in week 14. It's happened every year. I don't know that it's going to happen this year, not because there isn't more ground to make up or because they're not going to keep improving, but this is the most stable the defense has been. It's also why we're not seeing Jaden Hicks right now, where he might be able to get out there and play some good football sooner rather than later. He hasn't been forced to, though. And it feels like, and I don't know if you've watched enough defensive film specifically to be able to like definitively land on this, but I feel pretty good about the theory. There is no dumbing down to bring somebody along for the ride. Leo has a larger role. He's been here. Wharton is playing better football. I don't even know if his role's really changed, but certainly he's been here. Dana and Karlaftis have certainly been here. The rest of the linebackers. This is year 2 for Drew Tranquill. This is obviously Nick Bolton's been running the defense through his headset throughout his entire career here. This might be the last year for Justin Reed, and the next year Jaden Hicks can take over more of that spot. Shamari Connor is not learning on the fly young player. He's now being used as a weapon when Spags wants a weapon like that. Jalen Watson, much larger role, much more important, not new, not a rookie, not his head's not spinning at the NFL level. So to me, it feels like we are getting almost a maximum capacity Spags defense early on. Not that they're shooting every shot or pulling every lever, but there aren't growing pains right now. And we've become accustomed to growing pains for good reason because Spags wants to install so much in this defense over the course of the year. Right now, it just seems like smooth sailing. I'm curious what you think of that theory.
This is something, while you were talking about that, I'm looking at something kind of interesting here. So if you go, to Pro Football Reference, it gives you the snap counts, etc.
Yeah.
To find a guy who, wow, the way I'm going to phrase this is not going to be great, so hopefully you can rephrase it in a better way. To find a guy that wasn't with the team last year, or in multiple previous years, you get to a 4.14% of the snaps in 13 snaps in Jaden Hicks. So
Hicks is the highest snapping newcomer on the defense at 4%.
At 13.
Right. Yep. The next highest is 12.1%. That's Josh Williams.
13.
Above him, 14% is Malik Herring. Then Derek Nottie at 17%. And it just goes up. Every one of these guys, Nottie,
even the role
FAU,
players have been here.
Even the role players.
Yes.
FAU, Nazi Johnson, Mike Pennel, Leo Chanel, Mike Dana, Chamari Connor. Now we're just kind of working our way up. Tershawn Wharton, by the way, shout out to you playing 72% of the snaps. That dude took a 1-year deal. He's going to get more money next year. And he's well on his way to it. And this is without Amenahu, who's their other dude in the pass rush. And so everyone has been around for at least 1 year. And that is, so Chamari Connor he was a rookie last year. He's like the relative newcomer. Because Brian Cook, this is his 3rd year.
Yeah.
Everyone has been here at least a couple of years. And that is a huge boon in terms of allowing you to do all sorts of goofy stuff on the back end. And knowing who can do what, it really is a cool thing to watch. But I thought that was a cool stat because I was curious. I was like, man,
crazy.
When was the last time I saw a guy on the field that wasn't here last year? And turns out it hardly ever happens. It's like 20 total snaps. And it won, Jaden Hicks with 13 snaps, which, by the way, I saw Jaden Hicks and Justin Reed talking like on the sideline on like one of the NFL Films thing or maybe the franchise something. Jaden Hicks is a big dude. Like, he is a large safety. Like, he's noticeably bigger than Reed, who is a good size safety.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting but they just have all guys who have been here before, and Spags is just in a fever dream right now of being able to do whatever he wants, basing his defense around the best defensive lineman in the world and a guy who's got an argument to be the best corner in the world.
And I know there's always like some underlying instinct for a lot of people to take the like absence of a positive and to immediately assume it's negative. I could not be less worried about Jaden Hicks. This is in no way about him. It is about we've seen varying versions of this. Sometimes it's with newcomers, sometimes it's Juan Thornhill coming back from an ACL or whatever. But Jaden Hicks is just getting the Spags education right now, and he's doing it without it having to be in real time. So the Chiefs have the luxury of having their third safety be Shamari Connor, who's probably going to be their second safety next year. And Brian Cook played 100% of the defensive snaps. Like there's no doubt about him either.
You can see the rotation plan there 1,000,000%. And I appreciate Justin Reed. He's a guy that you'd love to keep around, but age stuff, whatever. And so I hate talking about this early because he's a huge part of the defense, and I appreciate everything he does. But him and Cook play almost every snap. Connor's in there for probably about 65% of the snaps. And you see what's going to happen next year. It'll be Connor and Cook, and Hicks will rotate right in there. And this unending series, Dave Merritt, please stay in Kansas City. Please. Spags ain't going to be around forever. Just stick around. Because do you realize the Chiefs have 2 corners playing in other cities at a very high level that they've lost over the course of the last 4 years, and it hasn't affected their defense adversely, and in fact, they're better. They are just as good.
And those guys haven't fallen off, to your point, which is also kind of another crazy part of that.
Yeah, Charvarius Ward has been terrific in San Francisco. L'Jarius Sneed has been dominant in Tennessee. Good on you, L'Jarius. No one earned it more than you. But, they just keep reloading. And it's just an astonishing thing watching how they've done it against a variety of different styles of offenses, different offensive attacks, different types of quarterbacks, different weapons. Early on in the year, we were like, oh, man, tight ends. And then Spags, again, talking about that button that Ben Solak joked about with run defense, he just pressed the no more from the tight ends button. And suddenly tight ends have barely been a factor. I don't know how he's doing it, but it's incredible to watch.
What about on the ground, Nate? You can read this in The Athletic right now. Chiefs have been holding opposing running backs just a smidge over 50 rushing yards per game. You have written about it. You've taken a closer look. What jumps out at you, and why did you decide now is the right time to highlight the Chiefs' run defense?
It was something that I was working on last week, and of course, even with the bye week and the fact that they were playing Alvin Kamara, I thought, okay, this will be a good sample size and something to really digest, depending on how the Monday's game goes. And so, as I wrote in the story, first third down, Alvin Kamara does amazing things. Just makes everybody miss. It's hilarious. And if you're a Chiefs fan, I wonder at that moment, you're like, oh boy, it might be one of those games because Kamara is one of the more elusive, slippery running backs, especially out of that, sort of zone Shanahan style that obviously the Saints are now running. And then that was it. It was a wrap. They shut him down. They started hitting him harder. And I don't necessarily know why. This won't get nearly the same amount of criticism as what happened in the AFC Championship game. But it wasn't like the Saints were getting blown out, yet they stopped running the football because every time they handed the ball to Alvin Kamara, you know who was there? Either Chris Jones or Mike Pennel, or in one case,
I don't know. I don't know. The announcer, I was told, whoever was doing the announcing, I can't recall, I was told that Chris Jones was being largely corralled in that game. Okay, I'm sorry.
He was expecting more from Chris Jones as he was in his way to 9 pressures.
I feel bad.
And again, Seth.
Hold on.
Seth.
Hold it.
Are you about to use a stat? Because what do numbers even mean?
No, for me, it was just the funniest thing because whenever you could tell they get like prepared clips to show something once they start saying something. And for Aikman, and this has nothing to do with everything we talked about earlier, for any announcer to be like, wow, I really like what their plan's been against, Jones. They've really done a good job taking out of the game. And I was like, really? Because that's not what I've been remembering. And then the series of plays they showed to show how they took him out of the game, he won every one of those snaps. Every one of them. One of them was a double team that he was starting to split despite a hand underneath his face, and Wharton got a sack because of it. And then the very next play.
Yeah, that's the one. The one is, hey, man, they're hugging him. They're actually tackling him, and there's a sack because that's his job. His job is to occupy two so that someone wins one-on-one. And congrats to Tershawn Wharton. He is now rewarded with the sack. The other thing, too, is, there were a couple of moments because, again, I really wasn't watching the game. Honest. Because of that whole...
Seth, you were the only one not dual
game.
Screening that at the time, including Nate in the press box.
I don't know where we were in both games, but...
The Chiefs did win that, right, Seth? I've not...
Yes.
Okay.
They managed it. I don't look at the numbers because what do they really mean? But
obviously,
I can't.
Right. So
26 and 13 are both numbers.
So I hear a big roar from my lap. While I'm looking at my laptop, I go, "Wait, what happened? What happened?" And Derek Carr threw an interception to Brian Cook. Huh? That's weird. And then you rewatch it, and you're like, "Oh no, it's not. He's terrified."
Yeah.
Understandably. Because Chris Jones is going to kill him, So on one end, I think there's a clear causation that I don't know if people have mentioned yet. I couldn't really get too much into the story from a written standpoint, just because I wanted to get through not only the Saints game, but obviously everybody remembers the play on 4th and inches, essentially, against the Falcons. Everybody remembers the fact that it was Lamar Jackson. It was actually not Derrick Henry who was the bigger concern on the ground. On a dreary day in December in Foxborough, the Chiefs made one small transaction before the game started. And we kind of knew what was going to happen. It was mostly a formality. But in mid-December last year, on a game where the only thing I can remember from a play is Clyde Edwards-Helaire being the first skill position player to high point a ball in the end zone, the Chiefs also made a small transaction. They elevated Mike Pennel from the practice squad to the active squad. And kids, you can see it from that day forth. They have been an above average run defense.
Yeah, he's played well.
He's 33 and healthy and only playing a handful of snaps. But my God, they cannot move him. Whether it's Trent Williams, whether it's someone from a Baltimore Ravens interior offensive line that I come to respect quite a bit. And let me remind you guys, and I wanted to make this point in the story too, on some snaps, you're getting, Chris Jones and Mike Pennel next to one another. So you have to make a decision. Most times the correct one is, yes, we have to double team Chris Jones because he's Chris Jones. What you fail to realize is, okay, if we're giving Mike Pennel one-on-one, and even if it's a stretch play, even if we're trying to cut him off or run away from him, Chris Jones and Mike Pennel combined to weigh 640 pounds.
A lot of pounds.
It's a lot of pounds.
There's a play where they are running a stretch to Alvin Kamara, and he gets sandwiched by 240 pounds for a 2-yard gain. I got to get off the field. Okay? I got to get off.
They should have tried just handing it to Colin Saunders.
Honestly, that might not have been a bad strategy when you think about it. So, Mike Pennel, since Mike Pennell's been elevated that day against the New England Patriots, they've only given up one running back 100 yards or more. And guess what, fellas? That was the last game the Chiefs lost on Christmas Day to the Las Vegas Raiders. They have not lost another game because a running back hasn't had the same impact from a production standpoint. So if you remove that, and you know Chris Jones is going to give you a certain level of pressure, quarterback hits, sacks. If you know there's crazy blitzes coming, if you know, as Josh so eloquently put last episode, we forgot Chris Olave was on the field because Trent McDuffie's there. There's not a lot of holes. So then the question becomes, okay, we're going to get our playmakers the ball in space, or we're going to ask our running backs to run to the perimeter so that we can have one-on-ones with smaller bodies so that maybe we can have a missed tackle or two. It kind of blew my mind that according to Pro Football Focus, they've only had 13 missed tackles when a running back has ran with the ball on a design run. 13.
They are not missing tackles.
They're not.
It happened, and we'll see, because that's something that. But I mean, you can see it's a point of pride, and you talk about like trying to get things to the boundary, whether it's to running back or receiver. The thing is, Watson and McDuffie both tackle extremely well. Josh Williams has not had nearly as big a role this year. But he's very physical. Johnson's very physical. Cook, Reed, Connor all tackle very well. Connor, shout out to Shamari Connor.
Eight of those are Shamari Connor's.
Yes,
whiffs, but
8 of those were Shamari Connor in the first 2 weeks, and he's arrived more under control because he hits hard.
Just a missile, dude. I am not. This is not a criticism of Shamari Connor. I appreciate how little he respects his own body.
Yeah, they look legitimately miserable to play because there's just not a lot of weak points to attack, and they have the personnel to, if they see a team kind of trying to take advantage of certain things, they really can shore that up. They can make you, as the old, the Belichick thing, they can make you play left-handed. They can take away what you do well, and then you got to try to do the other thing, and they can just morph into that too. It really is a cool thing to watch, and it's built around 2 legitimately elite players, and then a bunch of multiple really good players, and then a bunch of decent players. Like there's not a bad guy out there on the Chiefs defense on a snap by snap basis. There's not a single player. Like the closest you can get, well, no, I'm not going to do that. The closest you can get is situational stuff. Force Leo Chanel to be in coverage in the red zone.
No, say his name.
Things like that.
Say his name.
Force Nick Bolton to the boundary in space.
He ain't.
That's the best
he's not on the roster right now. Seth, say his name. Come on, he's in the Ring of Honor for a number of reasons. Say his name.
I also don't know the game that Nate
I'm
is
so
playing
sorry.
right now. I'm
like,
lost too. I'm sorry.
Hey,
you lost us
know?
both.
Hey. There's no greater variance. I will never. It ain't gonna never change. Okay. As long
There's
as
not a Dan Sorensen in the defensive backfield.
Thank you.
Sorry, it took me a minute.
Thank you.
You said his name's in the Ring of Honor, and I was like,
Hey. You may not see it, but he up there. Okay. No one has given us more with less.
Only weird gaslighting.
Trick or treat. What is it? Is it a trick or is it a treat? I don't know.
Who knows?
Which was the good thing? Which was the bad thing? You don't know either. That's the point. He could do anything. Hey, you need a fumble in a playoff game against Bill O'Brien? That's a treat, kids. Or was it a trick? Hey, do you need me to leave Stephon Diggs wide open? Tricks on you, buddy. Tricks on you.
It really is a remarkable spot. And as you alluded to, Seth, there are 2 elite players on this defense and then varying degrees of guys. There is an elite defensive coordinator. There is an elite defensive backs coach. You might, if you want to talk about Joe Cullen or whatever, that's fine. I do not.
Terrific job.
But I can't. Also, it's not a shot at Joe Cullen. 2 defensive ends have not taken a positive step this year. I don't know. But Tershawn Wharton has. Not the point. The point being, 2 elite players, 2 elite coaches, and a unit with no weaknesses. And I believed in this iteration of the Chiefs defense being good. I was not going to hold them to the standard of great through the first 5 weeks, and here we are.
Absolutely.
We are at an hour. We have playoff baseball in about an hour. And I think what we should do, I have a lot of wide receiver things. Seth is working on a lot of wide receiver things. I'm guessing Nate's going to be spending some bye-week weekend having some chats about some wide receiver things. So let's go ahead and just, unless another Hall of Fame quarterback calls one of us a mean word, then I think we should begin Tuesday's show with the real dive into the wide receiver situation, because there's still interesting stuff we haven't gotten through all the details of the Saints game, which is that they activated 5 receivers and only asked 3 to play wide receiver. And the future of that position right now is very, very uncertain. So, Seth, you're going to have something in the newsletter about that before Tuesday, right? Is that the plan?
That is the rough plan.
Love a rough plan. Concepts of a plan from Seth. And then Nate, I guess you can go ahead and take us out of this show. I don't think this needs to be about a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think this probably needs to be about game 4 of a must-win game at Kauffman. I imagine that's where we're heading right now. I imagine we're going boys in blue.
All right. Now, last time I did this, I think they won. Not saying I'm superstitious or anything. Just a odd coincidence. Now, ladies, I had everybody take a knee. We said a prayer. We won game 2. All right, now our backs are against the wall. Okay. I just want to remind people that, you're supposed to remember that sports gives you multiple emotions almost at the same time, a lot of times. And I know the standings suggest that the Yankees are a better team, and they will have a chance to prove that tonight at Kauffman Stadium, or perhaps on Saturday in game 5. Okay. Everybody knows that you look those guys in the eye tonight, and you say, this is it. It's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. It's the hard that makes it great. Fellas, it's supposed to be hard, okay? You're playing the New York Yankees. Bob Costas is making it hard. The
Not for me,
umpires are making it hard. It's supposed to be hard, okay? Trust yourselves, all right? Baseball's inside you. Can't deny that. Come on.
It's what lights you up.
It's what lights you up.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Get hard.
You can tell the difference between those who have seen A League of Their Own and those who are real curious about why this became some kind of verbal OnlyFans.
You don't know what that is.